She had always loved the sound of the piano. Ever since she was very young, she could sit for hours, listening to the soft notes that seemed to float through the air. Her parents had an old piano in the living room, its black and white keys worn from years of use, and she would press them carefully, trying to recreate the melodies she had heard on the radio or on TV. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it sounded like random notes, but she never gave up. Music was more than just a hobby. It was a language she understood better than words. Her classmates often laughed when they saw her at the piano during school events. They whispered that she would never be any good, that playing the piano was too difficult for someone like her. Teachers offered polite encouragement, but their doubts were easy to see in the way they looked at her hands or suggested simpler songs. Even family members sometimes questioned her dedication, suggesting that she focus on something more practical or easier. But she ignored the words. She had a feeling deep inside that if she worked hard enough, she could create something amazing. Every day after school, she would rush home, drop her bag, and sit at the piano. She would practice for hours, sometimes until her fingers ached, trying to master the techniques she saw in videos or read about in books. She wanted to prove to herself that she could do it, that she could turn the chaos of notes into something beautiful. Some days she would play a song perfectly and feel a rush of happiness. Other days, the notes would stumble under her fingers, and she would feel frustrated and almost ready to quit. But the next day, she would sit down again, determined to improve. Her dedication did not go unnoticed by everyone. The neighbor who lived in the apartment above could hear her playing through the thin floors. At first, he thought it was just background noise, but soon he noticed that her playing was becoming more skillful, more expressive. One day, he came down to compliment her, saying that he could hear how much effort she was putting into her music. It was a small gesture, but it made her feel seen, like someone finally understood her passion. School was not easy. While other students excelled in sports or academics, she struggled to fit in. People often ignored her, and she felt invisible in the hallways. But the piano was her refuge. It was a place where she could shine without worrying about what others thought. At the piano, she was in control, and each note she played was a small victory against the world that doubted her. There were moments when the doubt crept in. She would hear someone whisper, "She can't play," or see a teacher shake their head when she attempted a difficult piece. Those moments hurt, but they also fueled her desire to improve. She wanted to silence the critics, not with words, but with music that spoke louder than any judgment. It became a quiet obsession. She would stay late into the night, practicing melodies over and over, learning from every mistake, and slowly but surely building her skill. Her best friend at school didn't understand her obsession at first. She would often ask why she spent so much time at the piano when she could be out with friends or doing something else. But one day, her friend came over and listened quietly as she played a song she had been working on for weeks. There was a clarity and emotion in her music that could not be ignored. Her friend's eyes widened, and she said softly, "You're really good. I didn't know you could play like this." It was the first time someone her age had truly recognized her talent, and it made her feel a mix of pride and relief. Despite these small moments of encouragement, there were still people who doubted her. During a school assembly, she was asked to play a short piece. She could feel the eyes of the audience on her, some curious, some skeptical. As she started to play, her fingers trembled, and the notes sounded hesitant. A few students whispered and chuckled. She felt her heart race, and for a moment, she wanted to stop. But then she remembered all the hours she had spent practicing alone, the late nights when she thought no one was watching. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and let the music take over. The hesitant notes became stronger, more confident, and by the time she finished, there was a silence in the room, followed by polite applause. It was not the standing ovation she had imagined, but it was a start. Her journey was not just about playing the right notes. It was about learning to believe in herself, even when the world seemed to be against her. Every stumble, every mistake, and every doubt she faced became part of her story. She realized that talent alone was not enough. It was the combination of persistence, passion, and resilience that would allow her to succeed. Her parents noticed the change as well. They saw her determination and how much joy playing the piano brought her. Slowly, they began to offer more support, attending her small performances, asking about her practice, and celebrating her progress. Their encouragement was not loud or dramatic, but it mattered more than anything else. It was a quiet affirmation that she was on the right path. By the end of the school year, she had grown immensely as a pianist. She could play complex pieces with emotion and skill, something that had seemed impossible at the beginning. Her confidence increased not because others recognized her, but because she had proven to herself what she was capable of. She knew that there were bigger challenges ahead, more people who would doubt her, and more opportunities to show what she could do. But for now, she felt a sense of accomplishment, a quiet pride in her talent and in the hard work that had brought her to this point. Even when she walked down the hallways of her school, she held her head a little higher. She was no longer just the quiet girl who spent hours alone at the piano. She was a musician, someone who had found her voice through music, and she was determined to let that voice be heard, no matter what anyone else thought. And as she sat at the piano that evening, fingers poised over the keys, she smiled to herself, ready for the next song, the next challenge, and the next chance to leave everyone speechless. The opportunity came unexpectedly. There was a local music competition, open to young musicians of all levels, and the announcement was posted on the bulletin board at school. She walked past it on the way to her next class, hardly believing her eyes. The competition promised a small prize and recognition, but more importantly, it offered a chance to perform in front of an audience larger than the few teachers and classmates who had ever seen her play. Her heart raced, and she felt a mixture of excitement and fear. She spent the rest of the day thinking about it. Part of her wanted to enter to show everyone what she could do, but another part worried about failure. What if she made mistakes in front of all those people? What if they laughed or dismissed her talent? But she could not ignore the pull of the piano, the way her fingers itched to play, the way her heart soared at the thought of performing. She decided to enter, telling herself that this was her chance to take a step forward. At home, she cleared a space in the living room for practice. She set up her music sheets, warmed her fingers, and began working on a piece she had always wanted to play. It was more difficult than anything she had attempted before, filled with fast notes, sudden pauses, and emotional swells. She struggled at first, her fingers slipping over the keys, producing notes that sounded awkward and uneven. Frustration threatened to take over, but she reminded herself why she was doing this. She wanted to prove that she could rise to the challenge, and she would not give up. Days turned into weeks as she practiced tirelessly. She recorded herself on a small phone to hear her progress and discovered small mistakes she had not noticed while playing. Each evening, she corrected them, playing the same sections over and over until they sounded smooth. Her parents watched quietly, offering encouragement when she seemed discouraged, reminding her that growth took time and patience. Even when she felt tired, she would push herself to practice a little longer, motivated by the vision of performing on that stage. At school, rumors spread about the competition. Some students mocked the idea, saying she would never win, that the competition was too big for someone like her. Their whispers could have been hurtful, but she used them as fuel, letting the negativity push her to work even harder. She spent lunch breaks at the piano in the music room, isolating herself from the teasing and focusing on the music. Slowly, her playing became more confident, more expressive, and she felt herself growing into the role of a performer. The night before the competition, she could hardly sleep. Her mind replayed every note of the piece, imagining her hands moving across the keys. She felt a mix of anxiety and anticipation, wondering how the audience would react. What if her nerves got the better of her? What if she forgot the music? She closed her eyes and took a deep breath, reminding herself of the hours she had practiced alone, the mistakes she had learned from, and the small victories along the way. She felt a quiet sense of readiness, a calm beneath the storm of emotions. The day of the competition arrived. The hall was filled with chairs, a stage, and a small audience of parents, teachers, and participants. The sound of tuning pianos and murmuring people filled the air. She waited backstage, fingers tapping nervously, listening to the other performers. Some played confidently, others made mistakes, and she observed them all, learning silently from each performance. When it was finally her turn, she felt her heart pounding, but she reminded herself that this was her moment to shine. As she walked onto the stage, she could see the audience waiting, some curious, some skeptical. A few students from her school were there, whispering and pointing. She took a deep breath and approached the piano. The first note felt shaky, but she forced herself to focus. Slowly, the notes began to flow, her fingers moving with a rhythm she had practiced countless times. She played with emotion, letting the music speak the words she could not express. Halfway through the piece, she made a small mistake. A note was off, and for a moment, she froze. She could feel the audience's eyes on her, and a wave of panic threatened to take over. But then she remembered all her practice, all the nights spent alone perfecting her music. She shook off the fear, continued with determination, and the notes regained their strength and beauty. By the time she reached the final chord, her music had captured the attention of everyone in the room. There was a silence, a moment of realization that this performance was something special. The applause came slowly at first, then grew louder. People were smiling, nodding, and some were even standing. She felt a rush of relief and pride. All the doubts, the teasing, the long hours of practice had led to this moment. She had faced her fear and transformed it into music that moved others. Her eyes filled with tears as she bowed, feeling the weight of accomplishment settle on her shoulders. After the competition, several people came to compliment her. The judges praised her technique and the emotion in her playing, noting that she had a natural talent that had been nurtured through hard work. Some students from her school, who had doubted her, approached with shy smiles and words of admiration. For the first time, she felt fully seen, fully recognized for her dedication and skill. The experience changed her perspective. She realized that talent alone was not enough, but when combined with persistence and courage, it could overcome doubt and criticism. She felt more confident in herself and in her ability to face challenges. The competition had been a turning point, a moment where her hard work had paid off in a tangible way. She knew there would be more challenges ahead, but now she had proof that she could rise to them. In the weeks that followed, her confidence grew. She continued practicing, exploring new pieces, and experimenting with her style. Her performances at school and in her community drew more attention, and people began to recognize her not just as the quiet girl who loved the piano, but as a talented musician in her own right. She felt a sense of belonging and purpose, knowing that her dedication could open doors to new opportunities. Even when challenges arose, she remembered the competition, the moment she had faced her fears and let her music speak. It became a source of strength, a reminder that doubt could be turned into motivation, and that perseverance could lead to moments of triumph. She continued to dream of bigger stages, larger audiences, and the chance to inspire others through her music. And each time she sat at the piano, she felt the same excitement she had felt when she first discovered her love for the keys, ready to create something beautiful, ready to leave everyone speechless. When the day of the school recital arrived, she felt a mixture of excitement and fear that made her stomach twist in knots. She had performed in small settings before, but this was different. The auditorium was packed, and the sound of people shifting in their seats filled the space. The stage looked bigger than she had imagined, and the piano seemed taller, more imposing. She took a deep breath, trying to calm the tremble in her hands. Backstage, other students were warming up, chatting, and joking nervously. Some were confident, moving gracefully, their fingers already running through the scales. She watched them silently, feeling a pang of self-doubt. What if she was not ready? What if she stumbled in front of all these people? But she remembered her countless hours of practice, the late nights, the frustration, the small victories. She reminded herself that she had prepared for this moment and that her music could speak louder than fear. Her name was called, and she walked onto the stage, her heart pounding. The audience was a blur of faces, some familiar, some strangers. She approached the piano, her fingers hovering over the keys. The first note came out soft, almost hesitant, but as she played the next few, confidence began to grow. She let herself be carried by the rhythm, each note flowing naturally, telling a story that words could not express. At first, the audience watched politely, unsure of what to expect. Some leaned forward, curious, while others whispered to their neighbors. She could feel their eyes on her, and a small part of her wished they would not notice her mistakes. But as the music continued, something shifted. Her notes became more precise, more expressive, moving through the melodies with grace and emotion. The skeptics in the audience began to quiet down, drawn into the beauty of the music. Halfway through the piece, she felt a surge of emotion that made her fingers move almost automatically. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting the music guide her. She remembered her first days at the piano, when every note was a struggle, and compared it to the flow she felt now. She realized how far she had come, how much effort and love she had poured into her craft. Every wrong note she had made, every hour she had spent practicing, had led to this moment of pure expression. The music swelled, reaching a powerful crescendo. She could hear the audience holding their breath, captivated by the sound that filled the room. She felt her own heartbeat syncing with the rhythm, a perfect harmony between performer and music. When she reached the final notes, she played them with a flourish, letting the sound linger in the air before finally fading into silence. For a moment, there was no applause, only the echo of the last chord and the quiet awe of the audience. Then the clapping began, slowly at first, and then louder, stronger, until it filled the entire auditorium. She opened her eyes, surprised and overwhelmed. People were smiling, some were standing, and others had tears in their eyes. She bowed deeply, her cheeks flushed with pride and relief. This was the moment she had dreamed of, the moment she had worked for, and it was more beautiful than she had imagined. After her performance, people approached her to congratulate her. Teachers praised her technical skill and the emotion she had conveyed through the music. Other students, some of whom had doubted her, now looked at her with admiration and respect. Even the principal, who had seen many performances, commented on her remarkable talent and dedication. She felt a warmth in her chest, a combination of joy, relief, and validation that she had never experienced before. The experience changed the way she viewed herself. She realized that fear and doubt were natural, but they could be overcome with preparation, practice, and belief in her abilities. She also learned that performing was not just about playing the right notes. It was about connecting with the audience, sharing a piece of her heart through the music. Each smile, each clap, each moment of silence during her performance was proof that she had succeeded. Later that evening, she replayed the day in her mind, recalling every detail, every note. She remembered the nervous glance at the audience, the trembling at the first chord, and the confidence that grew with each measure. She thought about the moments of doubt she had felt and how she had overcome them, realizing that this was not just a musical achievement but a personal triumph. Her parents were waiting for her at home, their faces glowing with pride. They had been at the recital, watching quietly, and their applause had been loudest of all. They hugged her tightly, telling her how proud they were, and she felt a deep sense of gratitude. Their support had been constant, even when they had not fully understood the intensity of her dedication. Now they celebrated with her, sharing in the joy of her accomplishment. In the days that followed, her confidence continued to grow. She noticed the way people looked at her differently, with a mixture of respect and admiration. She began to receive invitations to perform at small events, community gatherings, and even a local music festival. Each opportunity was a chance to continue proving to herself and others that her talent was real and meaningful. Despite the newfound recognition, she remained grounded. She knew that the journey was far from over and that each performance required the same dedication and focus she had learned to cultivate. She continued to practice daily, exploring new pieces and challenging herself to improve. She found joy not only in the applause but in the music itself, in the way her fingers danced across the keys and the way melodies could carry emotions that words could not. She also began to notice how her story inspired others. Younger students who had once ignored her started to approach her, asking for advice, seeking guidance, and expressing admiration for her perseverance. She realized that her journey was not only about her own growth, but about showing others that dedication, passion, and courage could overcome doubt and fear. Her music became a source of inspiration, a quiet reminder that anyone could rise above expectations with effort and heart. Even in quiet moments when she played alone at home, she felt the connection to the audience she had experienced on stage. Each note was a conversation, each melody a story, and she discovered a deeper love for the piano than she had ever known. She understood that true mastery was not just about technical skill but about emotion, expression, and the courage to share oneself with the world. As the weeks passed, she began to dream of larger stages, bigger audiences, and more challenging pieces. She wanted to continue growing, to explore the full potential of her talent, and to keep surprising herself and others. The recital had been a turning point, a moment where doubt was silenced and confidence emerged. But it was only the beginning of a much larger journey, one that she approached with excitement, determination, and a heart full of music. She knew that obstacles would come, that some people would continue to doubt her, and that mistakes were inevitable. But she also knew that she had discovered something invaluable: the ability to face fear, to rise above skepticism, and to let her music speak for her. And with every note she played, she felt more certain that her piano talent was not only a gift but a way to leave a lasting impression on everyone who listened, a way to leave them speechless. After the recital, everything seemed different. People began to notice her in ways they hadn't before. The whispers of doubt were replaced with words of admiration, and she could feel a shift in how others treated her. Teachers who had once suggested simpler pieces for her now encouraged her to try more challenging music. Classmates who had laughed at her practice sessions began to nod in approval, and some even asked for lessons or tips. It was a strange feeling, to be recognized after years of being overlooked, but she welcomed it with quiet gratitude. Her parents were especially proud. They saw her not just as a talented musician, but as a young person who had learned to persevere through doubt and fear. They celebrated her achievements in small ways, by attending her performances, helping her find new music to practice, and simply acknowledging the effort she had put in. Their support felt different now, more personal, more meaningful. She realized that recognition was not just about applause from others but about the love and encouragement that had surrounded her all along. At school, she began to notice how her success inspired others. Younger students who had previously avoided music now approached her with curiosity and excitement. They wanted to learn, to understand how someone could dedicate themselves so fully and achieve such results. She took time to show them basic techniques, sharing tips on practice and patience. It was rewarding to see their eyes light up when they discovered the joy of music, and it made her feel a sense of responsibility, as though her journey could help others find their own path. She also felt a growing confidence in herself. The fear that had once gripped her before every performance had diminished. She still felt nervous at times, but those nerves no longer controlled her. Instead, they became a source of focus, a reminder that she cared about what she was doing and that she wanted to do her best. She approached every practice session with renewed energy, exploring more complex pieces, experimenting with new styles, and learning to express herself more deeply through music. Opportunities began to open up beyond school. Invitations arrived for community events, small concerts, and even a local music festival. Each new stage brought fresh challenges and excitement. She learned to adjust to different pianos, different audiences, and different atmospheres. Each performance became a chance to grow, to push her limits, and to share her music with more people. The recognition she received was gratifying, but it was the act of performing itself that truly fulfilled her. Despite the positive changes, she remained humble. She remembered the days when she had been doubted, the hours spent practicing alone, and the moments of self-doubt. Those memories kept her grounded, reminding her that success required ongoing effort and dedication. She did not take the applause or recognition for granted. Instead, she used them as motivation to continue improving, to explore new techniques, and to deepen her understanding of music. She also began to reflect on the impact of her journey. She realized that her story was not just about personal achievement, but about overcoming obstacles and proving that hard work and perseverance could change perceptions. People who had once doubted her now saw her in a new light, and that shift in perspective inspired her to continue pushing forward. She understood that talent alone was not enough. It had to be nurtured with patience, determination, and the willingness to face challenges head-on. Her relationship with music evolved as well. It was no longer just a refuge from the world or a private joy. It became a way to connect with others. She found that through her playing, she could communicate feelings and stories that were difficult to express in words. The piano became a bridge, linking her emotions with the hearts of those who listened. Each performance, each note, was a conversation, a chance to touch someone's life in a meaningful way. As she continued to perform, she discovered a sense of purpose. Music was no longer just a personal achievement. It was a tool for inspiring others, for showing that dedication and passion could overcome doubt. She became a quiet role model for her peers, demonstrating through action that perseverance mattered more than natural talent alone. The joy of helping others learn, the pride in seeing their progress, added a new layer of meaning to her journey. Her own growth was mirrored in her performances. She began to experiment with expression, dynamics, and tempo, learning how to evoke emotion and tell stories through her music. Each piece became more than notes on a page. It became a reflection of her experiences, her struggles, and her triumphs. She understood that mastery was not just technical skill, but the ability to convey feeling, to create a connection between performer and listener. Even in quiet moments at home, she felt the transformation within herself. Practicing alone no longer felt like a struggle. It felt like a conversation with herself and with the music. Each hour spent at the piano reinforced her confidence, her resilience, and her love for the art form. She discovered a deep satisfaction in the process of learning and improving, realizing that the journey was as important as any recognition she might receive. The community around her continued to support her growth. Music teachers offered guidance, providing new challenges and encouraging her to refine her technique. Friends celebrated her successes and offered encouragement during setbacks. Her parents continued to provide a stable foundation of support, recognizing that their encouragement had been instrumental in her development. Together, this network of support helped her maintain balance and perspective, reminding her that achievement was not a solitary pursuit. Her story became a symbol of transformation. People who had doubted her, students who had laughed, teachers who had been uncertain, now saw the power of dedication and perseverance. They were witnesses to the way she had turned skepticism into opportunity, fear into confidence, and talent into expression. The change in perception was not just about her ability to play the piano. It was about the person she had become through the process of learning, growing, and performing. With each performance, she felt herself growing further. She sought out more challenging pieces, explored different musical styles, and experimented with composition. Her creativity flourished as she learned to trust her instincts and listen to the music within her. She understood that transformation was ongoing, a process that required continued effort, reflection, and openness to growth. By the end of this period, she was no longer the girl who had been doubted, underestimated, or overlooked. She had become a confident musician, a respected performer, and an inspiration to others. Her journey had shown her the value of persistence, the importance of believing in oneself, and the power of music to transform both the player and the listener. She was ready for the next chapter, eager to continue exploring her talent, sharing her music, and leaving audiences amazed by her skill and passion. And as she sat at the piano each evening, practicing for the next performance, she felt the same excitement and joy she had felt when she first discovered her love for music. The doubts of the past were behind her, and the possibilities ahead were endless. Her transformation was complete, but her journey had only just begun, and she was ready to embrace every note, every melody, and every opportunity that lay ahead, leaving everyone who listened to her truly speechless. As time passed, her story continued to unfold in ways she had never imagined. She had gained recognition at school and in her local community, but her ambition and love for music pushed her to aim higher. She began to dream of larger audiences, more challenging pieces, and the chance to touch lives far beyond her immediate surroundings. Every day, she approached the piano with renewed determination, knowing that her journey was far from over. She started exploring more complex compositions, diving into works by famous composers that she had once thought were impossible to play. The notes were intricate, demanding precision and emotion at every turn. She encountered difficulties and moments of frustration, but she approached each challenge with the same perseverance that had carried her through her first performances. Mistakes were no longer setbacks. They were opportunities to learn, improve, and deepen her understanding of music. With each new piece, she discovered new ways to express herself. Music became a mirror of her emotions, reflecting her joys, fears, and dreams. Her practice sessions were no longer just a preparation for performances. They were a conversation with herself, a space where she could explore ideas and emotions freely. The piano was her companion, a source of comfort and inspiration that had grown with her over the years. Opportunities continued to grow as well. Invitations came from local music events, cultural festivals, and community centers. Each new performance brought its own set of challenges and excitement. She learned to adapt to different audiences, venues, and instruments, and with each successful performance, her confidence soared. People began to recognize her not just for her technical skill but for the emotion and depth she brought to every note. Her story also began to inspire others in ways she hadn't expected. Younger musicians who had once been hesitant to practice approached her for guidance. She took the time to mentor them, sharing her experiences, her practice techniques, and the lessons she had learned about patience and dedication. Seeing their growth and enthusiasm gave her a sense of fulfillment that rivaled any applause she had received on stage. She realized that her talent was not only a gift for herself but also a tool to encourage and inspire others. Even as she gained more recognition, she remained humble. She remembered the times when people had doubted her, the quiet moments of practice in an empty living room, and the fear that had gripped her before every performance. Those memories grounded her, reminding her that success was built on effort, resilience, and the love for what she did. She approached each new challenge with a balance of confidence and humility, aware that there was always more to learn and explore. Her dedication did not go unnoticed by her community. Teachers and local musicians praised her commitment and skill, inviting her to participate in workshops and collaborative performances. She embraced these opportunities, eager to learn from others and to continue growing as a musician. Each interaction brought new perspectives, new techniques, and new inspiration, further fueling her passion for music. She also began to experiment with composing her own music. The process was different from playing existing pieces. It required imagination, creativity, and courage to put her own ideas into sound. At first, she struggled with self-doubt, wondering if her compositions were good enough or if anyone would appreciate them. But as she persisted, she discovered a unique voice within her music, a personal style that reflected her journey, her emotions, and her experiences. Composing became another way to share herself with the world. Through all of this, she remained connected to the joy that had first drawn her to the piano. The excitement of discovering a new piece, the satisfaction of mastering a difficult passage, and the thrill of performing for an audience never faded. Each note was a reminder of why she had started, a testament to her love for music and the fulfillment it brought to her life. She understood that true mastery was not a destination but a journey, one that required constant growth, exploration, and passion. Her influence extended beyond music. People admired her resilience, dedication, and ability to overcome doubt and criticism. Her story became an example of how persistence and self-belief could lead to remarkable achievements. Students, parents, and community members often spoke of her as an inspiration, and she embraced this role quietly, focusing on her craft while quietly motivating others to pursue their own passions. Even in moments of solitude, she felt the impact of her journey. Practicing alone, she reflected on how far she had come, from a hesitant beginner doubted by many to a confident musician recognized for her talent and dedication. She appreciated the process, the small victories, and the lessons learned along the way. Music was no longer just a skill. It was a part of her identity, a way to express herself, connect with others, and leave a lasting impression. She continued to perform at various venues, each performance strengthening her connection with the audience. She learned to read the room, to sense the emotions of those listening, and to adapt her playing to evoke the strongest responses. Music became a dialogue, a shared experience that bridged the gap between performer and listener. Every performance, whether for a large audience or a small gathering, was a chance to connect, to communicate, and to inspire. As she matured, she also reflected on the importance of mentorship and guidance. She sought out experienced musicians, attended workshops, and collaborated with peers. Each experience added depth to her understanding and skill, reinforcing the idea that growth was a lifelong process. She began to see herself not just as a performer, but as a student of music, always learning, always evolving, and always striving to reach new heights. Her story became one of perseverance, growth, and the power of believing in oneself. She had transformed from a quiet, underestimated girl into a confident musician who could leave audiences speechless with her talent. But more importantly, she had learned the value of effort, dedication, and passion. She had discovered that success was not just about recognition, but about the joy of pursuing what one loved, the courage to face challenges, and the willingness to share oneself with the world. Through her journey, she inspired others to follow their own passions, to overcome doubt, and to embrace the challenges that came their way. Her music, her dedication, and her story became a beacon of hope and motivation, showing that talent, when combined with perseverance and heart, could achieve extraordinary things. She realized that her journey was bigger than herself. It was about leaving a positive impact, inspiring others, and proving that determination could turn dreams into reality. Even as she looked forward to the future, she remained grounded in the experiences that had shaped her. The long hours of practice, the early doubts, the small victories, and the moments of triumph all contributed to the person she had become. She understood that her journey was ongoing, filled with new challenges, opportunities, and possibilities, and she welcomed them all with open arms, ready to continue her path, to create music that could touch hearts, and to leave everyone who listened to her truly speechless.